I'm Maggie Lattimore, and I am from New York. Born and bred, not one of those, I'm from New York, I lived there for 10 years. Like, no, I'm from New York. I even had the accent to prove it, but happily that faded away. Or at least I think I have, until I get angry. So anyway, I've been singing for 24 years, which is a little shocking to even say out loud.
Well, you started at 12.
So. I started at the age of 9. So, but no, I went to a little school in Potsdam, New York, Northern New York State University, at Crane School of Music, and I met my voice teacher there, and just wanted to do music theater, and I was just going to work on my musical skills, and then I was going to get the hell out of there because it's middle of nowhere. And I literally, I don't use the term lightly, I met a genius of a teacher. And she's the only teacher I've ever had for 27 years, I'm the only teacher. And people say they talk about their voice teacher, I kind of think of her more as my music teacher, because she not only taught me how to sing, she taught me how to count to 4. So things like that, which I can do on certain days. But so yeah, and this is my first time here with the opera, although I've been here with the symphony a couple of times, and I've enjoyed it.
I'm Amy Pfrimmer, and I'm singing the role of Kitty Hart, which is the mother of the murdered girl in the opera. I have a long history with New Orleans opera, starting in the 1990, doing The Celestial Voice and Tibaldo and Don Carlo. Let's see.
You did double duty in that
I
show.
did, and that was, I had already had the bug from New Orleans Opera because when I was a high school student, I grew up in part of the time in Louisiana, I'm an Army brat. But when I was in high school, the opera company sent a brochure to my high school that said you can have season tickets for $4 a piece. And I begged my parents, because I lived in Baton Rouge, to let me go. I didn't know anything about opera. It was just an excuse to come to New Orleans. And so I begged my parents, and they allowed me to come with a friend. And I saw things like Hansel and Gretel, and I saw all of these wonderful opera productions. And so, I feel like I really owe a debt to the company as much. I was in high school when I did that.
Oh my.
And so, but I loved it as a theatrical venue, just a way of doing theater, and I just loved it. And so I didn't have any idea I was going to do that, but I'm really happy with that choice.
I'm Kathleen Halm. I am singing the role of Jade Boucher, the murdered boy's mother. And this is my second role with New Orleans Opera. I was the foreign princess in Rosalba last year.
And I'm Mrs. Desrochers. I'm the mother of the convicted murderer, rapist murderer. So we all play very different roles, but we're all mothers.
And we also have interaction between the three of us. There is a particular scene in which we get to hear this mother's side of the story, and while we are feeling our own emotions about the loss of our children, and it's a hard scene for us to feel compassion, or there's the struggle of whether we should feel compassion or whether we should feel anger towards the woman who gave birth to this man who, in our minds is a monster.
And I think the whole point of that scene, again, I'm trying to get him to, life in prison and not be killed. I mean, he's certainly not going to be pardoned, but out of jail. But the idea of humanizing him, I mean, that's my role in that scene, I think. And I think the genius of this piece is that it really not just attempts, but shows the death penalty and the legal system from all angles.
Yes.
And I love that about Sister Helen. I mentioned to you guys that she would talk about the death penalty, that it was this thing that everybody was either for or against, but they didn't know what it was. And again, I won't even try to do a New Orleans accent, but she says it's that thing that happens in the middle of the night, and why midnight? Why at midnight? Because it's not on the news right away. It's not, and unless they've done it wrong, sadly. I find what I love about it is at least shows what it is, so you can have an informed opinion on either side. I appreciate that about it.
Absolutely.
And also, I think what this opera shows us also is all sides of the story. I think we were talking about this the other day about the effect that it has not only on the families of the murdered children, but also the fallout for the family for Joe's family, the murderer's family.
I mean, you're pariahs, you know.
Yes.
I mean, there's no way you could probably even stay in your community, you know.
No,
when somebody's done something like that.
I'll tell you, I saw that scene that you have with Joseph for the first time last night, and you brought me to tears.
Well,
And
Jake brought you to tears. The scene is so, honestly, is so perfectly written. It literally falls out of your mouth. And you know, he wrote it for von Stade, but she says von Stade, apparently. And you know she was sitting next to him, you know. It'll be great. I mean, it's like speaking that scene. It's unbelievable.
Amazing. And it's not just that, it's you as well. I mean, the way you sing it and the way you portray it. And I have to tell you, in the first scene that we're in together, when you're talking about he's a good boy and all this, I'm seriously just rolling my eyes. I'm like, yeah, he's great.
He's great.
Good job.
Well done. You know, but just that idea that, and you know, they'll see that in the opera that, you know, I know in my own son, my husband sent a picture of him just the other day, and he's sitting on the couch, he's got these long legs, and I wrote back to him, he grew 3 inches. I left 10 days ago. What? Stop. And, you know, the idea that you can't help, I mean, I want him to grow and I want him to be an adult, but there's no belittling the idea of what you remember of them, you know, and I think this woman has made an informed, or maybe uninformed choice to just see him from maybe 0 to 12, and how could she survive otherwise? And I think that's,
I don't see how she could.
And we got into it a little bit talking about this character because everyone talks about how sympathetic she is, and you know, it's very hard to.
I don't find her sympathetic.
She's failed terribly.
I find her pathetic.
Pathetic, yeah, really.
Because we've all met this woman.
Yeah.
You know, who's chosen to be with the wrong man.
Over her children.
And then chosen to be with another wrong man over her children, who she's seen be terrible to her children, but stay with him.
And at the same time, of course, you know, again, we were talking, can't judge a character, you have to do it. And I do agree with that, and I can empathize with her is that we do what we know.
Yes.
And that's, you know, she's just repeating this cycle.
Absolutely.
But there is something very pathetic and sad about it.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, there are people, and that's where you wonder, is it nature, is it nurture? There are people that pull themselves out of horrendous situations, you know? I mean, how many sports stars literally idolize their mother because she pulled them out of a horrible situation. I mean, a lot of these guys grew up with nothing.
Yeah.
And it was their mothers, there's no father, it was their mothers that had the strength and the spine, and many of them were maybe abused when they were young. But,
chances are good.
But they were able to muster the courage. And I think that's the thing, is that she just doesn't have it, she has no courage. And she doesn't even have the courage or the strength to let him confess to her, and he's desperate to confess to her. And that scene was very hard for me when I first started learning it, because I was like, how can you not let him confess?
I know, right? This is the last time you can be his mother.
Really be there for him. You weren't there for him, now you can be.
But that's it right there.
But
she never was.
She never.
And she's not going to be at the end.
Well, and the idea that we said in rehearsal the other day, if she lived with that information, how does she raise these other 2 boys? Does she have, you know, I love that she has 2 more children, although maybe that's not the best decision for her, but that she has another opportunity to do better.
I don't think she's a bad person.
No. She's a victim of
person.
circumstance.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I think we make choices, and there are many people that pull themselves out of horrendous situations and do well for their children. You know, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that, well, you were raised badly, and that's what you know, and no.
But can she do any better with the next 2? You know, I mean, they're hearing.
Well, I mean, I think there's
done
hope
already, because one's getting married, right?
One's getting married.
At what age, though? Isn't he like 16? You know,
at least he's gone past the 9th grade.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't leave school in the 9th grade. And also the young boy playing the youngest boy, who I just love what he does.
So cute.
And I know everyone, you know, initially was like, oh, it's too sunny, it's too bright. But what I love about him is that he's this awkward teenager who's acting inappropriately in this horrendous
And
situation.
He's very exuberant, and and it's very honest. You know, the whole portrayal. Of course, you've been in the show before. Neither of us have done our roles before or done any other roles in the show, but you've had the opportunity to not only to sing Mrs. de Rocher, but you've also sung Sister Helen. And so, do you find that you're still affected by the music and by the situations and by the character choices of different singers as you've done this over different incarnations of your roles?
And again, with anything that you get to repeat, there's no one way to do it, and no matter how much you've done a role, and there's a great advantage to have done a role a lot. At the same time, there's a disadvantage because people bring a lot of baggage to a situation because they know it works, and so it's kind of hard to be out of their comfort zone. Like, I've never done it that way, And so, like, there's actually a freshness for me when I work with people who haven't done it before, who have no preconceived notions of how it's supposed to go, and I love that about it, and then it makes it new for me, And I mean, I'm not saying I'm always successful, but I really do try to enter any rehearsal situation as open to any possibilities as I can,
And you, so having sung the role of Sister Helen, I'm sure you see differences in the way that you portrayed that character and the way that Jenny Rivera
or how I would do it now in comparison to how I did it. I mean, I did Sister Helen before I had a child, then I did it after I had one, then I did Mr. Rocher, and now I'm doing it again. And just just growth, just growing as a human being and maturing. I look back at that Sister Helen that I did, and I think, oh, she was so clueless.
But in some ways, I mean, there are some ways. I mean, she's in the land of apologies.
I'm sorry is big with her.
I'm sorry.
I know it's like the Ocello of Italian. Oddio, Ocello. I'm sorry. Mi dispiace. But yeah,
we don't have any fun in it.
No, but it's true. Even Jenny says that. She's like, which I'm sorry isn't. There are a lot. Well, it's Catholic. Sorry. Raised so say sorry a lot. I think I can say it in almost every language. I can find the bathroom and say I'm sorry. But yeah, no, I think it's double-edged. I think having experience with a piece is great, and you can bring that to your colleagues who don't have experience, but then you need to feed off the freshness that someone else brings to a piece, because I've seen it too often where, and especially in the stock operas, the Bohèmes, the Carmens, where like, Diva 1 comes in or Diva 1 comes in, and or they don't relate to what's going on around them. I'm like, you're not in our production. You don't know which one you're in, but not this one, And I think that comes from just being guarded and being afraid to try new things. And I can understand that. They're under a lot of pressure.
It's scary.
Well, and again, you're sopranos.
Diva 1 and 2.
Diva 1 and 2.
I beg your pardon.
I'm sorry.
I'm mezzo soprano, so I'm seconda donna. You just have to be comfortable with that. And what was it? I think it's Marilyn Horne said, we're witches, bitches, and men, and Carmen doesn't make up for everything, and it's true. And you have to be very comfortable being that seconda donna. And so it is interesting in a piece like this, where wow, you're it. You're number one. It is rare. It really is. And the fact that he wrote 2 mezzo roles, that are so glorious. It's such a. I mean, when this piece came out, I was just so grateful because I love Vanessa and I love Barbara, but must have winner. Let's do something else. Is there another aria we can do as mezzo?
Honestly, aren't you the only soprano role in this opera? Because I'm singing a mezzo role.
But
I'm not a mezzo.
Because Sister Rose is a
Oh, that's right.
fantastic soprano.
Big old soprano,
With all her high B's. Adrian, man, she just has them.
She's amazing.
It's so beautiful. I'm such a fan.
Love her.
Yeah, no, it is. It's an incredibly strong cast, and I posted last night, and I really do mean it. This isn't sucking up. Last night, hearing that chorus and hearing you guys who have never done this role before as locals, very often you have the local whatever, and you're like, oh my gosh, so bad, paying her a nickel. And and what was so amazing is that the wealth of talent in this town is like, I mean, it's a blessing to the opera, because very often, you know, you are unappreciated in your own town, but you know, here you're bringing great talent to quote supporting roles, but just great singing, because truly you all get your moment, you know, and you all have like, you know, here lines here and there that have to soar, and you can't have just, you know, your local Sunday school teachers. But that's what happens often, you know, and so and then the chorus too. I mean, it's just powerful.
Great. They've learned this music.
They like it too.
Yeah,
I think
they do.
really do.
Well,
like
and
this
Carol,
piece.
she just gets it done. You know, Carol Rausch.
But even what is it? It's Jake and Tyler. No, Taylor.
Taylor.
Who sing the two chords. I'm sitting next to Ken going, listen to these voices. And he's like, we're Loyola, what can I tell you? We're in New Orleans, we just got good singing.
They all
here.
worked with Phil Frohnmeyer.
Really?
Yeah, the late Phil Frohnmeyer.
Natural, clear, unpretentious singing. I think that, and I said that in that round table, and I really do mean it. Of all the major towns that we visit, this town is the most unpretentious major city I've ever visited. Because I feel a mixing. I mean, I'm sure there's class systems and everything, but even in your downtown, like I'm pretty sure that there is a Four Seasons hotel, and I swear there's a tattoo parlor next to it. I remember when I was working with the symphony, I would walk around downtown and like you'd see some hoity-toity hotel, and then there'd be like, you know, this nasty bodega next door. I'm like, this is awesome, you know, which has really gotten sad about some of the major cities, especially New York, because it's so gentrified. Yeah, it's Disney.
It's Disney.
So there's an authenticity to this place that I just
Well, and
really
it's a
like.
great place to live too.
It's a great place to eat.
I know, for sure.
Have you had the peanut butter burger yet?
Oh, what?
Do they have that here?
Yo Mama's. No,
Are we ordering?
we have to go to Yo Mama's, maybe after rehearsals tonight.
Oh my God!
Peanut butter
Don't
burger.
even. Don't.
No, we'll split it. We'll split it.
You know, again, I'm staying. I got this apartment over at Bikram Yoga Studio, and so I'm just like trying to melt myself every day, just so I
Well,
can
I'm
leave
going
the
with
same
you in
weight
the
I
morning.
came. What?
I'm going with you.
I know I
Great.
have to go.
What time is it?
Well, there's a couple of different classes. I haven't done the classic. I haven't done the full 90 yet. I've been doing the hot happy hour.
And that's good.
Yeah, it's
It
good.
is still happy.
You gotta go in the
It's still
morning.
happy. Although I did it this afternoon, and I swear that girl had the room at 200 degrees.
They do that sometimes. I always sit next to the door, so when they crack it for some air, I'm right there.
But the other thing too is I really do feel like sometimes they're gonna go, hey girl in the corner, take it down. No, because my face gets so red.
They will never tell you to take it down, ever, ever.
But I'm
ever.
Irish, and that just the minute I walk in the room, it's red. It's even when I'm not like working out
No,
yet.
they
so.
don't. They don't tell you to take it down. I did this with a pregnant woman who was like 9 months pregnant. She would do this Bikram, and they never said a word to her. They're just like, let her go.
The thing I do love about it, though, and I encourage my students to do some sort of yoga just for the breathing.
Yeah, it's perfect.
You know, and we were talking about it last night when we left rehearsal. What I love about it is that I hadn't been doing it for a long time, so of course it's very humbling. And if you haven't been singing for a few weeks, it can be very humbling. You know, when you go, you know. And what I love about yoga and singing, what I try to tell my students too, we were talking about how like with young singers, you know, a coach might say, you can't breathe there. I'm like, yes, she can. She's 19. She can breathe wherever she wants. Because basically, you're teaching your body to be tense at the end of a phrase. And I feel exactly the same way in yoga. That like, if I'm pushing too hard and my breath is high, and I'm teaching my body to be in a panic. So you park your ego at the door and you just stand there while everybody's being a pretzel around you.
know,
It doesn't matter.
that's it right there.
your
You
practice.
park your ego.
Yeah, you got to park your ego at the door. And again,
That's brilliant.
and honestly, and the woman who owns the studio, we've had
Emily.
some lovely conversations. And you know, there are all shapes and sizes in there. And I said, you know, you realize for somebody like me to walk in the door, it's hard. And she says, no, and the interesting thing is I admire those people so much. You know, the people that are coming in and they're this big and they're pretzels, and you know, it's not that their practice is any less important, but that you really are, you know, humbling yourself to this practice.
Well, and don't you think these days it's important to feel strong in your body? It doesn't. I'm not talking about weight. I'm
Yes.
talking
But
about
strong.
being strong in
Yes.
your body so that you can sing the way that you
Yes.
want to.
Well, and the other thing that I love about yoga, which I always tell all my students, is that they, you know, there's no washboard style. As great a yogi as there is, there's always a little so the breath is still flexible. And the minute it's like that, the breath is no longer has elasticity. And so that's what I just feel like singing and
What a great
yoga
metaphor for life. Seriously.
Exactly.
You don't want to go for the washburn. You want to go for the breath.
You want to go for the breath.
I'll buy.
Well, again, and just even, just in terms of like ease. I mean, I'm just so grateful for my own teaching, and I know you guys can speak to it. My teacher, she was always on a 10-year arc. She was always like, yeah, that's impressive now, but in 10 years, that's going to have a normal, that's going to have it, And in the society we live in now, which is 10 years isn't it too late?
I mean,
Well, 10 years is as long as a lot of people sing anymore.
Yeah.
I remember my voice teacher, Virginia Sayani. I'm sure.
Oh, of course.
And she'd always say, you have to look pretty when you smile, or when you sing. So you always, you can be sad, or you can be happy.
But you also don't have to look like you're
Exactly.
gonna have a seizure.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think one of the thing is with the whole thing with YouTube. I went to Stephanie Blythe's been a really good friend of mine, and she's done so well in her career. We went to college together, and we joked saying that if YouTube was invented, it had been around in college, we never would have left our dorm rooms. I mean, we were such geeks. We found every little videotape that we could, and so now when the kids go on video on YouTube, I'm like, scroll down to the black and white ones.
Exactly.
Scroll down.
That woman, she's like, I have bronchitis today. But then she pop out a high D, like, and you're like, really with you?
I mean, again, the thing that I find so hard is that it is this 18th century art form that was, when time moved slowly.
Yes.
And we have this life now that everything is so fast. And I even feel it in my son's education. It's just like, it's all about how quick they can get it. And I'm like, honey, be a tortoise. I am a tortoise. I am the ultimate tortoise. And it took me so long to get any good at this. I was humbled beyond belief. I don't know if you were more natural singers, but first of all, I didn't have really any musical skills. I mean, I had so much.
I still don't.
I don't.
That's not true. Oh my God.
I had so
Couldn't be
much
singing this
catching
for.
up to do, and that was my study. Again, Pat was born out of Vermont. We were in Potsdam, New York, which is a wonderful school. I mean, it's fabulous. But it's a music ed school, so not a lot of people wanted to really sing. So she would say, "You come by my office at 4:00 today," and every day, I literally had lessons.
Wow.
But you know what? That's
But it wasn't always singing. Sometimes it was just with sticks trying to understand what a rhythm was.
But seriously, what a luxury.
I mean, of course I didn't know it. I didn't know it.
No, you didn't know it.
And
now
now
looking back at it, wow, what a luxury.
I had the same kind of thing. I didn't really, I think, intellectually understand that I didn't read music when I started college. I always could sing, and I could hear my part because I was singing soprano. But when I was in school, I had a professor who was singing in a choral group with me, and he said, "You don't read music. You need to come to my office these days every week." And he gave me solfege lessons and rhythm lessons, and
Yeah.
I mean, it was an intense hour twice a week,
And I
or 3 times a
needed
week
it.
sometimes. Me too.
I really
And but
needed
if
it.
it hadn't been for that person, I would be lost. I wouldn't have gotten to do anything.
I always encourage my sopranos. I have some sopranos that have church jobs, and sometimes some of the directors want them to sound like a boy soprano with half the sound or half the color. And I'm like, okay, so you need to sing second soprano. You need to sing alto. You need to sing some
That's what I
harmony and learn how to read music.
Sure, that's what I did.
Because I think it's at a disadvantage that you guys always have the tune, right? I mean, it must be
When I
really
went
hard to
to
hear the inner voices.
Sing with the Gregorian chant choir. I'm like, I can't sing this soprano.
No, it's...
Except Jake
I know,
Heggie
yeah.
always gives the mezzo, the melody pièce.
That's an anomaly.
I disagree.
At least in this opera.
But it is rare,
Not in our stuff. Oh no! Come on now.
But I guess that, and so that was, you were right. I mean, I look back at that experience, and I would not be there. I would just be doing something else for sure. And years later, I mean, you have those great moments with people where I was doing a very hard opera. I was doing Great Gatsby, John Harbison piece. And it was hard. But that woman had taught me how to prepare a score. And that was the other thing too, is I didn't leave college with a lot of repertoire. I mean, I really didn't. I had like 5 arias in the recital program, and that was it, you know. But I knew how to learn music,
Right.
you know. And so I remember Pat came to my dressing room. I was doing Jordan Baker. I was the golfer, and she knew how hard it was. And I really sang well that day. I was very proud of myself, and I hadn't made any rhythmic mistakes. And back in the day, I didn't know what a triplet was. So she'd be like, pineapple, grapefruit, pineapple, grapefruit. So sure enough, she comes to my dressing room. She's like, we've come a long way from pineapple, grapefruit. I'm like, we certainly have. You know, again, and she was brilliant, but never made me feel stupid, never made me feel bad that I couldn't.
That's the
do
key
things.
right there. My first teacher at IU, I will say, you know, I was the only student in her studio who did not leave her office in tears. And only because I absolutely refused. I would not give her that satisfaction.
I don't understand the breaking down of the
But then she'd call me at
humiliation
10 o'clock at night and want to talk.
Yeah. Yeah, I just like again from your own teaching, you have to be exacting and you have to be, you know, have high standards and high expectations for kids. But at the same time, what yelling makes me tense, and tense does not lead to good singing. So why do people yell? Why do directors yell? I mean, I know it's all power, and I think that's.
But that goes back to muttering.
I guess so, or just empathy with other people. You know, I mean, it's even, again, back to yoga. Me, like, railing on myself and feeling crappy isn't going to make my practice any better, you know? And so I guess, and that's the interesting thing, too, is now it's all about, well, I don't teach notes. I'm like, I'll teach notes. Come in, let me show you how to learn this piece.
Yes.
Before you start singing it when you don't really know it. And that's my favorite. When they're like, I'm just not singing this well. And I'm like, well, first of all, you don't really know it. So you don't have a right to really be bitching that you're not singing well. And you know, without sounding trite, I mean, Pat, my own teacher, always wanted us to be musicians. She did, you know, and with that, you can learn anything. And so yeah, it's all about everything happening fast. And I don't know about you guys, but whatever I still learn music for a professional singer slowly. I'm not a fan.
As long as you're ready in time for the gig,
Yeah.
who cares what your
Here's
parents
what it takes.
You know?
Yeah, we all know our own.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to prioritize
I need
too.
to have the pressure of a date coming up.
Oh, well, nothing doesn't get done on a deadline. You know, weight loss, music learning, your taxes. You need a deadline.
I need a deadline.
No, and I think that's true. I think that's true about everything. You know, we can procrastinate like crazy. No, fear of firing.
Fear of failure.
And
it's my
humiliation.
It's my fear of looking like an ass.
Yeah.
That's my fear.
And you know, part of it,
You look good.
But you know what? We were talking the other night. When I was a kid, and I'm sure when you guys were out early too, I prepared to perform. Like that first day of rehearsal, I was ready to perform.
Yes.
Now I'm ready to rehearse.
Yes.
You know why? Because I have responsibilities besides myself. And this is where I get into such danger, and I don't know about you guys, but like, you know, when you have some young singer who, and I'm not saying you have to be married or have a family, but like to be responsible for something besides yourself. And you're in this rehearsal, and they don't know their part. And I'm like, what else do you have to do? All you have to do is learn music. You're not folding anybody's underwear. You're not cleaning your house. And it's just mind-boggling. Like, how do you spend your time? Why are you
What
not
do you
prepared?
do? Are you on Netflix? I'd like to do that.
You know,
That'd
and
be
I'm
fun.
a good binge watcher, but I still get it done. You
Yes.
know? And that's just mind-blowing to me. And that was, you know, a little bit was certainly my own education, but also, you know, just young artist programs where they put the fear of God and you better know this better than you did.
That's true. Well, because then you're on stage with the seasoned artists, you know,
To know their
as a young
part.
artist, right? And so then you know, but that's part of the learning process too. Is do we want to do it like this or do we want to do it like this? And so, I mean, I don't know. I feel like nowadays, I mean, I'm professoring, so I'm trying to fit it in when I have a break here and there, and so you know, I'm really disciplined with every 30-minute window that I have.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I have it scheduled.
And in a way, again, when you have endless time, and maybe that's why it doesn't
That's
get
when
done.
I don't do it.
That's when you don't do it.
Exactly.
Well, don't give me a weekend off.
I will do nothing. No, seriously, I will do nothing. I'll watch Supernatural. That dude is hot. But you know, if I have like, okay, I work these days, I have to do this these days, I've got 20 minutes here, I've got 30 minutes here, I've got 45 minutes here, done.
And I think it's been proven that we do better work that way.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that's the other thing about, I won't get into public education, but sending them home with hours and hours of homework is, they don't have the focus. They just,
They're done. They
Well,
just did 8 hours.
And they just, that's their job, is that they just worked all the
They
day
worked
at school.
all day.
Yeah, no,
You know?
and it is frustrating. Again, it's about this fast, it being happening fast,
Yes.
and learning fast. And I'm one of these people. If I work on something on Monday, like let's just a section, I know it Wednesday. And I don't just know it; it's tattooed to my head.
Yes.
And that's my process. And it took me a long time to stop feeling bad about that. It was just like, well, no, you just have to carve out more time. That's just how you learn. And so like this whole cookie cutter idea of either as a singer you have to look this certain way, you have to act this certain way, you have to learn music this certain way. I mean, it just doesn't, I'm sorry, different
Each
strokes.
person
Each person really is different, and their process is different. And, I kept joking with Robert, I said, I know my part. I might not necessarily know when I'm supposed to sing it, but my point being, sure enough, with the music in front of me, and even without the music in front of me, I'm good. But once you have the staging, I'm going
It's a
to
lot to
make
think about.
mistakes.
So yeah, I told him the other day, I said, we staged it and we went through it once and I didn't sing. And he's like, you didn't sing there? I said, yeah, I can't walk and do this the first time.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I really, and again, some people can, and I totally,
I'm just
appreciate
getting
their
old.
process.
I can't.
Well, that's the other thing too. I think our lives become hopefully fuller.
Yes.
I mean, just with your husband having to campaign with him.
Not this time.
Not this time. But just
Re-elected unopposed.
But what about, think about the amount of time that you normally would have put towards yourself that you put toward your spouse. And I think, and not to say that's not possible. I think it's,
You get torn in different directions.
You do.
A little piece of you has to go here, and a piece has to go here, and a piece has to go here.
a couple of years ago I was doing this piece called Dark Sisters, and I was the grandmother. I was like, no, really, I was the oldest girl in the room. And no, I was. Everybody was like 10, 15 years.
Isn't that the plight of every mezzo though? You've got to play the grandma.
No, it wasn't necessarily. I wasn't necessarily playing a grandmother. I just felt like one. And because they were all very young, and they'd all come to rehearsal. And I joke with them now because they all have different lives. I joke with them now saying they would come in and they'd all be so put together. I mean, they were always.
Isn't that the way it was at IU?
It's so
Remember
put
with
together.
the pantyhose and the hair's done and the makeup's done?
And we were rehearsing in
Oh, it's terrible.
Brooklyn.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, but even still.
Yeah.
And so we'd have like rehearsal at 10 a.m. in Brooklyn, in the middle of nowhere. And so they would all be there 10 minutes early, all vocalized, and I'd come in literally as it was like striking 12. I'm like, I'm here. I'm not late. And my point being is that some of them were just getting married, some of them were just starting to have children. None of them had that yet. Some of them were married.
Right.
But like once you become responsible for things beyond yourself, your spouse, your whatever, you just have to. And I'm sorry, women. My friend, was in the enlarged program with Nathan Gunn, and he has 5 kids. And he's like, oh yeah, we just have it easier. I'm like, you do.
Totally.
He's like, oh yeah, you guys have screwed. It's so much harder for you guys. And I loved him for that, because
Yeah.
it is. There's, however much we evolve, there's hunters and gatherers, and there are certain things that are expected of us. But what I love,
Well, and I think that we also feel a certain responsibility just innate.
yeah, I mean, you just do.
If you don't do it, like we have Sitz Probe on Saturday. My daughter's
Do we?
going to. Yeah, we do. I know. I'm with you. I forgot to. But I only know this because my daughter has her winter formal on Saturday, and she's got to get her makeup done. And she has to be at her friend's house at 5:15 with her date and everybody else to have pictures taken. Well, guess what? We're in Sitzprobe from 2 to 5.
So Daddy's gonna
So
take
Daddy's
her.
got to take her to tea.
Love it.
But I've got to set all this stuff up, and I've got to make sure that she has the right dress and the right this and that and the other thing, and I have to make sure everything's okay. And when it's not okay, then I'm going to freak out because it's my responsibility.
She's 15. She doesn't want you to do all that, right?
She does. Absolutely. She's just like me. When I got married, my mom's like, well, we'll plan the wedding together. I'm like, no. I'm going to show up. You plan the wedding. You do it so beautifully. You give wonderful parties. I don't want to know anything. I don't need to know.
Well, the end of that story was going to be that these girls they were so, they were all very put together and a little uptight and the whole deal. And I said, honey, all of you, I said, there's going to be a time, and I really believe this, that when you go to rehearsal, it's going to be the easiest part of your day.
Yes.
And I think we could all say that. I've done college teaching. I mean, you go to rehearsal, it's the easiest part of your day.
It's a great part of the day.
It's a great part of the day. And don't you do such better work? Because I'm just relaxed now and don't care in the best possible way.
But I think for myself, it's a combination of being a teacher, but also I feel like it's what I get to do is that I get to be a teacher and I get to be a performer, and
one
it's
really can feed the
it's
other.
such a great combination, And
it's nice when you come off a gig and you start working with your kids again because you're so juiced.
Yeah. But I mean, so I'm doing that simultaneously,
Yeah.
and it, I'm in a good mood all the time. I mean, I'm,
your students are
I'm
loving you.
generally in a good mood, but I give them hell,
Yeah, but I think the speech I always give them is that, it really does need to be something that you need to do. Because the amount of times that I literally have packed it in and said, I'm going to do something else. This is too hard. Business has changed too much. It's not what I'm about anymore. And then I realized that on wherever I do it, it's something I really do need to do. It's not something I just like to do. Or, there's those moments where like you're so connected to what you're doing and with your colleagues. And there's just like a lining up of, I don't know, I sound silly, but like a lining up of energy that I just don't get from anything else, And just even a little bit, and you can speak to this as well, there's a bit of shaming that goes on with women when you go on the road. And,
I do it to myself.
But they do it too.
You mean when you're leaving your family?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
And they're like, so you're going to be gone?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm not abandoning my son. I'm leaving him in the care of his father. But knowing that they would never say that to my husband.
No, they would never.
And
the
so,
times
but
that I was
need
told,
to do it.
while I was great with child, and I mean great with child, which I was from month 5.
I know. Well, that's my husband's
You're
line.
never going to have a career now.
Yeah, exactly. It's over. But talking about great with child.
And I'm like, okay, well, let me go take care of this.
When I turned to my husband, I'd say, could I get any bigger? He'd go, define big.
Good
Okay,
man.
were you ever asked if you were having twins? Oh, you must be having twins. My daughter was 7'2".
Oh, well, my son was 10'1".
Okay, so I
was
was
into the world. Yeah, I was a rock star, baby.
I
Yeah, no. But, yeah.
Well, this has been delightful. Shall we order some dinner now?
I think so. Ralph's on the park.
Absolutely.
They have a really. Let's look at the
We get to
menu.
eat?
Yes.
Oh, we should definitely.
Oh, I didn't know food came.
Do we
I
get
know.
to?
And thank you so much to Ralph's on the Park.
Yes, awesome.
Thank you to Ralph.
Just in case anyone would like the information, and we hope you're all planning to come to see Dead Man Walking, March 4th, the performance is at 8 o'clock, and on March 6th, the performance is at 2:30. And both performances are at Mahalia Jackson Auditorium. So we really hope you'll be there and enjoy the show.
The governor turned down his request for a pardon.